run, go, go, go. Everybody go.
Mass murder in Las Vegas, the largest massacre in U.S. history, once again raises the debate over gun laws.
A bump fire stock allows you to simulate automatic fire.
Small change. The NRA gives first ever signs it may back restrictions in the target bump stocks and automatic gunfire.
We do know some people are going to come here, and if they do, I'm going to do everything I can to be helpful to them. And I know they're going to have issues.
Safe haven. Florida braces for a mass exodus from Puerto Rico. People escaping Hurricane Maria's devastation. Is Florida ready?
Good morning. So great to be with you today for an important conversation, the one the nation tries to have after every horrific instance of mass murder, only to be stuck in partisan limbo.
The Second Amendment, of course, guarantees that Americans have the right to own and possess guns, but as a Supreme Court justice once said, the Constitution is not a suicide pact. Stephen Paddock had more than 24 guns in his hotel suite in Las Vegas a week ago, and he used them to indiscriminately mow down audience members at a country music concert down below.
Paddock equipped assault rifles with what's known as bump stocks, a legal device that turns a semi-automatic rifle into a machine gun. He was firing 90 bullets every 10 seconds, hundreds of rounds, and the result, as you know, was chaos and carnage and death, the worst mass shooting in U.S. history.
Gun laws and common sense are the topic under discussion this morning. First Amendment, Second Amendment. Our guests include Bob Harvey, whom you see here, Chief Instructor at the South Florida Gun School. He is a former marksmanship instructor for the U.S. Marine Corps. Bob also is associated with the National Rifle Association and owns a security consulting firm.
Walter Philbrick is a retired police officer, counterterrorism instructor, private investigator, an author, and a former gun shop owner.
Burdette Jepson is with the League of Women Voters of Broward County. She lives in Sunrise. She is the League's gun safety chair and works with the Florida Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. To all of you, good morning.
Good morning.
Great to have you come in.
Thank you for coming in.
Walter Philbrick, let me ask each of you, but begin with you. We have had this conversation over the years after Columbine, after Newtown, after Charleston. Is anything going to change? Will any laws be enacted? Should they be enacted?
Maybe on the bump stock, possibly. You know, I'm a supporter of if you have an automatic weapon, you should be licensed to carry it or own it. So that might
That's a
change
tough
there.
license to get, too,
Yes,
since 1986.
Yes, it is. As far as things going to change, it's going to get worse.
How so?
Because the active shooter, the mass murderer, wants to beat the last number of fatalities. So Las Vegas was 59 people dead. Next guy's going to go for 62 or 65.
We've had this conversation after every mass murder that sort of rivets the nation's attention on one particular incident. But gun law it covers so many other instances and many more common instances that happen right here in our own zip code and street violence. Bob Harvey, we talked earlier, Sandy Hook, where innocent kindergartners were slaughtered. Somebody came forward after that 5 years ago and said, if nothing happens now after this, nothing is ever going to happen. What's different now that we're talking about again?
I don't think anything's different. It's the same story and sort of the same song and dance, if you will. You have, after a tragedy, emotion takes over as opposed to common sense. In most cases, what we see is the anti-gun crowd come out right away, and like the same day or the next day, and start blaming a situation like this on an individual item as opposed to a person. And then it goes to a group. What we normally see are several things. The first is not an honest conversation. And when I say that, even though they're asking for restrictions, what they really want is an inanimate object.
Even the NRA has joined in and said, all right, maybe you can't deregulate bump stocks, which was the device that essentially turns a semi-automatic into a full automatic, allowed up to 800 rounds per minute that this guy was firing.
Let me correct you. First off, a bump stock does not turn a semi-automatic into a fully automatic gun. You can ban that stock. It just gives it ability to reset quicker. I can do the exact same replication without a bump stock on an AR-15 or an AK-47 with a rubber band and my belt loop. Again, what you're trying to do, and what everybody's trying to do here, is take an inanimate object and legislate it away.
I want to bring Bernadette Jepson into the conversation. You know, Senator Marco Rubio on Monday, we spoke to him. He was in Miami. He had mentioned he said, we are open to any policy that will make things better, but every recommendation, I'm paraphrasing him here, every recommendation brought to us so far would not have prevented the mass crime that has just occurred. And he's right, So in your work on legislating gun policy, where I'm hearing such an us versus them theme when it really should not be us versus them, how do you address the kind of policy that will prevent, on the whole, people dying instead of just making it a partisan political divide?
Well, I think first of all that we must accept the fact that we have a problem. Over 30,000 people lose their lives due to firearms per year in the United States. The mass shootings are horrible, of course, but they are just the tip of the iceberg. So if we have 30,000 people losing their lives due to gun violence, I believe that as Americans we need to say, let's take a look at that and find ways to solve it.
Well, what would be a few specific ways to solve it? I mean, would you say, let's have a national registration when a gun is sold? I mean, we have VIN numbers. When people buy an automobile, the VIN number is registered and people know who owns that automobile. Should the same apply on guns?
We have some proposals in the Florida Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence is introduced or supported legislators that have introduced a bill to ban semi-automatic assault weapons, and as well as the large magazine or the large capacity magazines, as well as they are hoping to introduce a bill for universal background checks in Florida. Now, universal background checks are supported by gun owners, by most of the American public, but there are those who lobby very heavily against that.
Can I interrupt you to simply say, Bob Harvey, what about a universal background check? I mean, between individuals selling guns, there is no check right now.
That is a fallacy.
No,
that is a fallacy. But let me stop.
No, all right, what's the fallacy?
The fallacy is that there's no individual background check.
No, there are, but licensed gun dealers have to.
Yeah,
I accept that.
Sure,
but there are many loopholes.
Let me walk back, please, just for 2 minutes. You use the number 30,000. I'm going to address that first and foremost because this is the fallacy. I said earlier, one of the problems is the contention that there is a logical conversation to be had. 30,000 shootings a year, 65% of those are suicide. 17% of them are police shootings in defense. 18%, when you break it down, it's under 5,000 people that died from the use of a gun.
So what we do then is reframe the gun debate, not about people doing mass shootings, but how do we keep people safe from the danger of someone with a gun who shouldn't have one? Is that something you could work with?
With freedoms come responsibility and results. Yes, the problem is if we have the freedoms that we have in our country based on the Constitution, and that's what it is unless you take and change by using the 28th Amendment, which I don't think any politician wants to jump on that end, it's going to continue.
Walter? Can I jump in?
Oh, Walter, jump in here.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in because one problem is this is the form you fill out to buy a gun. It's called a 4473. And one of the questions is, have you been adjudicated mentally defective or have been committed to a mental institution? Mm-hmm. People lie on that because you could be Baker-acted, which means you go to the mental house for a couple of days. The Marchman Act, you have a a substance abuse problem, and you can't. We don't check that when we sell a gun.
And that's
it's confidential.
actually not even the whole story, because just within the last 24 hours, Stephen Paddock, the shooter in Las Vegas, now we're starting to hear that people who knew him, he was deteriorating since October. But prior to last Sunday, did anyone notice mental illness? He never was adjudicated mentally ill that we know at the moment.
Can we address that for a second?
Can we take a quick break, and then
Sure.
because we're
Okay.
we're going to take a quick break and come back and address that. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We are in the middle of a really interesting discussion, again about gun debate, a little bit different this time. Where we left off was talking about the mental health component. Bob Harvey, you were saying mental health is a critical component of gun awareness, gun law.
Actually,
Where do we go with that?
Actually, it's kind of a little different. He brought up the situation where on a 4473 that they actually lie on it. Now, I know what's on there.
The application.
This
the
is the
actual
application
application.
form.
So let me stop and let's talk about that a second. We want to place new laws in, and it was kind of funny because Joe Biden actually said this on TV. We can't support the gun laws that we have already with finances, but yet let's make more gun laws. And I can send you that script. Last year alone, 70,000 people lied on a 4473, which is the application to buy a gun. Do you know how many were prosecuted?
How many?
60.
So
Well,
so
then
now
that's-
does that beg the question that backgrounding in gun applications is a process that needs to be changed?
Okay, I would buy that. Why make more laws when the ones that you have that could be effective on the books aren't even being prosecuted?
All right,
Right.
let me kind of jump in here and let's talk about a specific, the possibility for the first time in, decades, that Congress may in fact act and pass something is on these bump stocks. And Walter, you heard Bob here say he could devise something that would turn a semi-automatic rifle into what amounts to full auto with a rubber band or something, because he's a gun expert. But on the other hand, anybody,
skill, yeah.
you know, I mean, the bump stocks make it easy for anybody. They cost as little as $100. Should they be outlawed?
I would say yes, only because someone who wants to own a Class 3 weapon, which is fully automatic, pays a fee for that, and they're checked out totally and licensed. Here you go buy a bump stock, attach it to your rifle, and you have a fully automatic weapon with no licensing. So I think it should be outlawed, yes.
Well, there's already bills filed. Senator Bill Nelson, Florida Senator Bill Nelson, filed in the Senate. Representative Carlos Curbelo in the House.
Kind of a gutsy political act for
And I'm a gun
Republican.
advocate.
Or else they're
However,
reading the tea leaves, in that this country and if the gun lobby for the first time can get behind what even a small portion of something to change for the better, then politically that's good. And can I just say one more thing? The Congressman Curbelo also had last year introduced the no fly, no buy, which seemed like a common sense bill. If you're on the no-fly list for some reason, you shouldn't be allowed to purchase a gun. But that went nowhere
There's reason.
so far.
Well, let
Yeah.
me say one thing. And I know you don't like to compare us to the rest of the world, but my gosh, we're part of the rest of the world. And we have more gun deaths in our country than any other developed country. Now, why is that? And I want to ask you that question when I'm finished. I want to hear your answer.
Oh, I have
because we think differently on this. We have two sets of beliefs here. Those of us on the gun control side believe that more guns make us less safe. You on the other side think more guns make us safer. I'm not going to convince you. You're not going to convince me. But there's another group here, and that's the general public. And I think that they really don't have, they are not part of either one of us, and they have their own opinions. I hope that they will pay more attention. I think they haven't paid. Whether you think they're legitimate deaths or not, there are 30,000 gun deaths in our country every year. This is about the same amount as opioid addictions, but we don't hear about a gun death epidemic.
But if there's, to that point, 30,000 gun deaths a year don't occur because of a common static reason.
No, and
so,
this is another point I wanted to make. It's a very complicated problem, and it needs complicated solutions. But the first thing we have to do is admit that it is a problem. And we need our elected officials to say, okay, maybe in a mass shooting, this might be a way we can prevent that. In a child accidental death, maybe this way we can prevent it. And look at it as it is. It's a lot of different kinds of deaths caused by different things.
Walter, is there a component here of the criminal justice system? You know, we're looking at this end of it, but this end of it, this morning I heard the NRA head, Wayne LaPierre, talk about we have a catch and release justice system. Should we be talking about that?
Wherever I go, I carry a gun. I really do. Because America
Good
is
to know, thanks.
America is a gun culture country, you know, since the 1700s. And I'm not going to go anywhere without a firearm. And to stop these active shooters or mass shooters, it's like how they stop terrorism on board airplanes.
What would have happened, Bob, if in that Las Vegas field there were 22,000 people, the majority of whom had a gun? What do you picture that response looking like as we look at the response of what was occurring?
We will never know because that concert was gun-free.
But hypothetically speaking, I mean,
That's
in your
a great point.
professional
One thing I
opinion.
don't do. I'm not going to give you hypotheticals. I'll give you facts.
Well, you said it was gun-free, and so no one there presumably had one. What do you expect, or what would you have liked to have seen if people were armed? What do you think would have happened?
I don't think anything would have changed it with them being armed. And let's also go to, after the shooting started, what was the first thing we did? We called armed men to come and stop the active shooter. This was a breakdown of security of the hotel and the casino, pure and simple.
How so?
Well, I would happen to agree with you.
How?
I mean, how does a guy get 10 suitcases
Right.
loaded with weapons
Right.
into a room, and then there are cleaning people who come
Not
into the
just-
room and don't see them?
there for a week.
Not just into
4
a
days?
room. Not just into a room. Casinos have the highest security out there for robberies. Let's use some intelligence when we look at this.
Yeah.
This man had to come in. You don't carry 23 guns into a hotel room, thousands of rounds of ammunition without making multiple trips into high traffic areas.
Do you think he should have been limited in the number of guns and ammo that he had?
The amount would mean nothing. He wound up having 23 guns and 3 of them did the most damage.
Do you think he should have been limited in the number of guns he could purchase in a short period of time?
I don't think that that's my decision or yours or anyone
I'm just
else's
asking your
opinion.
Just give
opinion.
us
I'm
an
just asking
opinion.
your opinion.
Yeah.
He
No.
should be able to have as many as he wants.
On that note, quick break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We are having a very lively discussion this morning about the massacre in Las Vegas and could laws cure it? And we have just said, and Bob, you agreed with me during the break, that we still don't know what motivated Stephen Paddock. And, you know, it's a mystery how he deteriorated, and he apparently did, as Glenna said. But the motivation for this, who knows?
Here's the problem. We're still, we're within 2 weeks of this. The police have not finished their investigation. We may never know. The police department, in a lot of cases, in a situation like this, will retain some of the things that they know to keep from giving it to copycats,
Well,
to
that's
keep
good.
from
Yeah, good.
showing terrorists how it's done.
Was it an issue that a lot of news reporters across the country who first learned what a bump stock was, then went on air to show where you could get it, how much it cost, and what it did?
Isn't this kind of what I was saying earlier? Normally, the first one in and the loudest is the most wrong.
Well, hold on. On Monday, my local 10 News colleague, Jeff Weinzer, did an excellent piece describing what a bump stock was. And in fact, Walter Philbrick was in that piece, and you described it and described it well. I mean, that's what the news business is about. What's wrong with that?
I can tell you the first 2 days of news broadcasting was wrong on everything that they said.
How?
There was
give me
very little
what was
other
the most
than-
egregious? What was wrong?
They were wrong with the amount of people that were killed. They were wrong with the amount of people that were shot. They were
number
wrong.
changes.
Well, it
These
does.
things change all the time.
Can I just bring us back to like the topic at hand is the gun debate, and why is this even political to begin with? Why is it politics?
Well, I like to, and you certainly can, correct me if I'm wrong. You know more about the NRA than I do. But the NRA has a history of being a hunting organization. It was
but
very
that
much
doesn't say
in
why
favor
is
of
it political.
it was very much in favor of regulating guns for a long time, and then it turned into a political arm of the gun industry, and it decided that it was going to lobby very heavily. And as we all know, it's a very powerful organization. So they have supported certain legislators, certain members of Congress that agree with their positions, and they have fought against those that do not agree with their positions. So that's how it's, I think. I'm not just blaming the NRA, it's every special interest group does that.
And so the Second Amendment is the bedrock of this argument. And what's interesting, we had this great conversation at dinner last night. The Second Amendment was written before automatic weapons existed. Yet, the Second Amendment's intention was to prepare a citizenry to have the same firepower as its government.
Correct.
So, where do you go with that?
This is a good moment if I can. There was an excellent op-ed column this week in the New York Times by Timothy Egan. I want to put this up. It's a little bit long, but let me read this because it's very thoughtful. He wrote, Paddock unleashed about 90 rounds per 10 seconds and could mow down his targets, human beings, almost a quarter mile away. He was able to convert semi-automatic AR-15s into something very close to machine guns. All his weapons were legal, but should not be by any rational reading of the Second Amendment. Did the founders really intend to empower crazy people to kill children at school or worshipers in a church? No, the Second Amendment has become a cancer because lawmakers stopped making laws to match the technological advances of weaponry.
That's pretty funny to me. I could say the same thing about the First Amendment, the internet, and television.
The First Amendment has exceptions.
And the Second Amendment is, there's nothing in the Second Amendment that prevents lawmakers from regulating weapons.
I think they have.
In fact,
Well,
they do have regulations.
The courts have
so it's
limited.
not a matter of, the Second Amendment is a false argument. It's not a matter of whether we should be able to own weapons. What the argument should be is how do we regulate them to keep our public as safe as possible.
Let me ask you a question.
All right, Walter, hold your thought. I'm told we have to take a break, and we will be back with more of this discussion. I'm sorry, I'm told we're going to come back with a roundtable. So for you,
Which is more discussion,
and
technically
we'll continue
speaking.
the discussion there. But to all of you, thanks for coming in.
Are we finished? No.
When we go to
Not
break,
really.
you can.
And now to one of the great features of our program every week, our Powerhouse Roundtable, and we've got a great one for you. Here is Melba Pearson, Deputy Director of the American Civil Liberties Union of Florida, former prosecutor in the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office. Sergio Bustos, Senior Editor of Politico Florida. He has covered state politics, local politics for the Associated Press and the Miami Herald. And we want to welcome for the first time Sean P. Jackson, head of the Black Republican Caucus of Florida. And he is, as I say, with us for the first time. Sean.
Thank you for
Good
having
morning.
me. It's
Thank
a
you for
pleasure.
being
Great
here.
to have you.
Thank you.
And for the record, we have been on Facebook Live from the beginning of this program, and so the discussion has sort of already started on the roundtable. Well, since you're new here, we'll break you right in. You listened to
right.
the first block discussion, the first segment discussion. Why is this gun debate so political, and will we ever move forward if it remains so?
You know, we were having this conversation in the break room prior to, and it was a really good conversation. And I love speaking with folks on the other side of the aisle, or folks who don't have an objective politically on either side, because it really helps me to rethink through my standings and firm beliefs on what I believe in. And I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment. I believe that, and it's funny you just said that because we had this conversation a second ago, that when our founding fathers created this living and breathing document that guides our country from its inception for the remainder of our existence. They did so giving us, the citizen, the right to protect ourselves from the government, from anarchy, from anything taking place that infringes upon our right to be a citizen. However, as you so eloquently said, I don't think they also saw forwardly ARs, automatic weapons, bump stocks, all these other different types of things coming into play. But the problem with that is that you cannot begin to single out any one particular classification of people that can or can't have these guns, and you can't begin to single out
people who are mentally ill, people who are felons. We've done this all the time. The courts, Melba, I mean, you're a lawyer, you're a prosecutor. I mean, the courts do this.
Absolutely, and I think the discussion we keep getting away from is the fact that every amendment is subject to reasonable restrictions by governments to enforce public safety, to make sure there isn't anarchy and crimes committed in the streets. And even the conservative darling of the Supreme Court, Justice Scalia, stated in the DC versus Heller case that the Second Amendment is subject to reasonable regulation. It's not an unlimited right. So for some reason, our lawmakers have made themselves slaves to this false narrative that they can't touch anything having to do with the Second Amendment.
But what are those regulations? What are those common sense regulations? That's what we can't get to. And for everyone's goal is safety, public safety. That's it. That's
let me
the goal.
jump in again on that. The Cato Institute, the chair of the Cato Institute, very conservative think tank, actually came out in an article with several ideas, including universal background checks, including regulations of expanded capacity magazines, whether that number should be 30, whether it should be 20, or whether it should be 10. They came out with some ideas. So I think it's a matter of people of conscience who do not want to see these mass killings continue, sit down on both sides of the aisle and come up with some reasonable compromises.
Sergio, hold on, Sean. So, Sergio, even the NRA, I think, has seen the outrage over this terrible massacre in Las Vegas, and they say, okay, well, maybe we should deregulate the bump stocks. I mean, that's really kind of maybe not a major position change, but it's a change from the NRA.
It is. Politically speaking, it's a very powerful lobbying organization. They've been around for a long time. And at least in this case, they seem to see that, look, this killing was so huge and so massive, and I think everyone did get introduced to what bump stocks are.
And it was enabled by the fact that the guy could shoot these AR-15s. He had, what, 3 of them, at 800, 900 rounds per minute. I mean, he fired off, what, 1,600 shots in 11 minutes. And 58 people died, 500 were injured.
But let me make this point. A couple weeks ago, we had a state senate election in Miami-Dade. This is one of 40 people representing us in Tallahassee. So if you really felt strongly one way or the other, you could have gone out and voted. The problem was in that election, 14% of registered voters actually went to the polls.
Isn't that the problem in every
election?
election?
I think that's what it comes down to. I think at the end of the day, if you really feel strongly, again, one way or the other, you can echo, you can voice your concerns by going to the polls. But I just don't think, I don't know, it never seems to come around as a real big issue come election time.
Because at the end of the day, Americans love their guns. And to your point, yes, there are crazy people out in this world, but how do you begin again, classifying what group of people are or are not crazy? How do you begin to classify and even form an opinion of what is technically called, quote unquote, crazy? We obviously see people who are deranged from their actions, but there are certain people that are crazy that don't show any sign of being crazy until they actually do something as
Stephen Paddock appears to be one of those people who, until the last few months, lived a strange kind of antisocial but a sane life, and then his life began to unravel. But Sean, hold on, Mel. Let me ask you, as the Republican at this table, we should point out that the one Republican in this country with the loudest voice has not weighed in on what happened. When President Trump was asked, what about gun legislation, his answer was, we'll see about that, or I'm thinking about that. What do you think he's going to say?
Well, I do have to respectfully correct you on that, because when the president was en route to Puerto Rico the other day, he made a stop in the Rose Garden, not the Rose Garden, but in the Colonnade area, and he did say that we're going to pass gun control. Now,
what?
Yes, he did, and I was even taken back by that.
You have that videotape?
I have that? I mean, I would think that would have been all over network local news.
Did you
well, it was over national news. It was certainly over national news because.
Repeat again. What did he say?
He said that we are going to pass gun control.
And
now,
he's going to support it?
I don't know what that means when he says that, and we know the president says things, and we don't necessarily know what that
was
means.
that in response to someone's question?
That was in response to someone's question.
With
yes.
no detail.
Yes, correct.
So no, I don't recall that, but we know that during the campaign, he repeatedly told people, I believe in the Second Amendment, I'm your guy, I'm going to defend it. I'd be astounded.
And he still does. He still does. You know, just because he says that he's going to support gun control doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to support having the right to bear arms taken away from us.
Well, he couldn't do that
entirety.
anyway. Yeah. I mean, that's not within his power.
Well, of course not. But what the point I'm making is that it's not going to be such an egregious bill that he chooses to support that is going to unilaterally take away, any
make
one
it much
particular.
harder to have guns. Okay.
Right.
There has been, I know you wanted to say something, I just wanted to raise, there is a bill already filed in the state to limit the sale of assault weapons in Florida.
And
in response to Las Vegas.
Correct. And I also wanted to bring to our attention with regards to the work of two Republican senators, I think it was Diaz de la Portilla and Flores, who made sure that, number one, this is not an open carry state, which I think goes a long way in keeping us safe, and secondly, that guns aren't being able to be carried on campus. So it is possible to have reasonable gun control put forth by Republicans, have it pass, and be protected.
And also, let's give State Senator Ana Terry Flores credit, because after Miguel Diaz de la Portilla lost his Senate seat, she took the lead on that committee, and she stopped legislation to allow open carry on college campuses.
Time for a quick break, shall we?
Let's take a break.
All right, see you in 2 minutes.
Welcome back. We are in the midst of a rockin' roundtable, and the discussion about guns, gun laws could go on indefinitely, but I think it's time to change the topic, because we must talk about Puerto Rico. Sergio Bustos, I think for you this is personal because you have family members there?
Yeah, I'm originally from Chile, but my in-laws are from Puerto Rico, and we were able to get them out of the country about a week after the storm.
Yeah.
And they are two among thousands that are going to start flowing here. But keep in mind, the economy in Puerto Rico is so bad that the flow into Florida is really going to change the political landscape of the state.
Sure will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are already predictions that by 2020, Puerto Ricans will outnumber Cubans in terms of voters, and that will definitely mix the presidential map.
We've already got, there are 1 million Puerto Ricans who live in Florida now. Most of them live in the Orlando area, but they certainly are going to be moving, already have a sizable Puerto Rican community here in South Florida. And the impact, Melba, on jobs, on schools, on the workplace, culturally, politically, I mean, this could be big.
This is going to be big. I was born and raised in New York, so I grew up around a lot of Puerto Ricans, first generation, et cetera. Hardworking people, great values, great sense of community, rich culture. But one thing I can say, you may not always remember what someone says to you, but you remember how they made you feel. Mm-hmm. And this administration made American citizens feel like second-class citizens. And they're going to remember that. And payback is going to come in that ballot box.
But I've got to disagree with that. How in the world did this administration make Puerto Rican citizens feel inferior or feel anything less than an American?
Throwing paper towels at them in the crowd?
Oh, you know. Okay.
Come on.
At the end of the show, at the end of the program, I'm going to have a little comment about that. But
wait a minute. You know what? If I'm sorry, maybe it's just me, but if any one individual is that insensitive or sensitive, I should say, for a roll of paper towels being thrown at him.
Well, I think that was symbolic.
It was symbolic. It wasn't just the paper.
It was also
In Texas,
the fact
he
that
handed
he was
out
saying,
sandwiches.
I think when he was saying that, you know, boy, this is going to cost the budget a lot of money, as if Puerto
You
Ricans are to
broke the
blame
budget.
for-
I mean, that is just totally false.
Well,
And,
no, that's
as
not
Melba,
true.
as
But no,
Melba
look at-
says,
yeah.
they are American citizens. And frankly, I listened to the president's comments very closely. And for a long time, his first comment was, "Well, I grew up in New York, like as you, and so I know a lot of Puerto Ricans." The president never said, "And I know they are American citizens."
And contrasted with Governor Rick Scott, because Governor Rick Scott got choked up the other day talking about all the people that are going to be coming here, they're going to be struggling to make it. I thought Governor Rick Scott's handled it very well. He's already made tuition's going to be
In-state
in-state tuition for the kids.
Yeah.
A lot of things he's doing. And Senator Marco Rubio also has gone out of his way to...
He's been a real champion.
And I
for
think they
Puerto
realize
Rico.
the political... the stakes, the political stakes here, because
And they did it knowing that most Puerto Ricans who move here to the States, they can't vote in presidential elections on the island. But
Right.
they certainly can vote when they're in Florida or any place in the United States, and they mainly vote for Democrats.
yeah, and Senator Bill Nelson also has been out front with stuff related to Puerto Rico. Because everyone knows 2018 is just around the corner, and 2020 is even a little
Well,
closer.
what does that mean for Puerto Rico? I mean, wait, what's the...
Well, here's the truth of the matter. Okay, now this storm, believe it or not, as crazy as it may sound, has been a blessing in disguise for Puerto Rico, because until now, Puerto Rico was $78 billion in debt. Their infrastructure was decrepit, ailing, and now they've got an opportunity for the United States government to come in and bail them out of a travesty that they didn't know how they were going to get out of. So, you know, we ought to be looking at this objectively to be able to say, hey, you know what? We're actually coming in and able to do something good for you now. There's a reason why the entire island was out of power, because their electricity grid was to crap.
Well, it was an oil-powered system mainly, and there is an opportunity for a more modern liquefied natural gas or other kind of power system that would be much more efficient. I mean, Puerto Ricans pay, twice as much almost for power as people in the States do.
And the president has shown his support since day one of the United States government giving anything that the island of Puerto Rico needs to Puerto Rico.
Actually, it was day 4. Just saying. It's day 4.
Whether it was day 1, day 4, day 2, day 3, this is what a lot of people fail to neglect to realize about the mainland versus Puerto Rico. We're talking about an island that is surrounded by water, okay?
Big water.
Big water.
And the
ocean water.
And the problem
Don't
with that
go
is
there.
that we can't, like, when Florida's electricity goes out, we can easily have a convoy of trucks come from Alabama, come from Georgia, come from Mississippi,
We understand that.
Carolina.
Logistically, much harder. And the other point, obviously, is that first responders in Puerto Rico were dealing with their own personal disasters. They had no communications. They couldn't get to work. The roads were washed out. I mean, it was
so how do we put
sui
that blame
generis
on the
down there.
president? Because the president has shown nothing but solidarity and support for the people of Puerto Rico, and has worked very closely with the governor of Puerto Rico to ensure that we get their needs and resources to them.
Why did he pick a fight with the mayor of San Juan?
Well, you know what?
Sleeping
Look,
on a cot
I don't.
while he slapped in the country club.
I don't speak for the president, so.
And I don't mean to put you in an uncomfortable spot.
Well, no, it's not
but
uncomfortable, because I'll defend the president any day of the week. You know, I've known this man for quite some time, and he is true to his word. He's a very faithful, honest man. He's a very loving man,
Right,
and a
but
very
back to the
generous
mayor
man.
of San Juan.
But the mayor of San Juan, she said what she said first, and hey, you know what? If the president felt the need at that time to respond to her, then that's his prerogative. I think she realized that that's the wrong person to pick a fight with, because he's not going to idly sit by and
in
be
a
quiet.
crisis. Yeah.
Can I just take the last 30 seconds of Roundtable and share complete condolences with the Miami Gardens family of Sergeant LaDavid Johnson, who is the young military sergeant
25 years old.
who was one of 4 Americans who died in what we understood was a very sudden and unexpected and violent attack in Niger. Also, Nigerian representatives died as well. This hits home to the South Florida community in a way that too many American communities know. And as his family today, we understand, is going to North Carolina to meet his remains, we express
Well said. We mourn
such
his
condolences.
loss.
Yes.
To all of you for coming in, thank you so much. Great roundtable. Still to come,
Thank you.
my personal perspective about the quality of mercy. All right, here is a live look now from our Hollywood beach cam. Looks lovely out there.
Beautiful shot. Here's Weather Authority meteorologist Jennifer Correa with the details of the Sunday forecast. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Glenna. Hi, Michael. It does look absolutely beautiful out there. In fact, Fort Lauderdale seeing a lot more sunshine now, reaching a temperature of 90 degrees already, 89 for Miami. And this is a forecast high, but it actually feels much hotter than that, in the triple digits. So it feels like almost the middle of summer. Now, winds getting a little bit breezier for Fort Lauderdale, 13 miles per hour. Still, the winds are out of the southeast. No rain on the radar, so we should stay dry for the rest of the afternoon. Showers will develop later on tonight and possibly into tomorrow morning, later in the morning, that is. Highs today, again, in the upper 80s, reaching 90 degrees, even on Tuesday.
Jen, thank you. All right, before we leave you this morning, a personal perspective about the quality of mercy. You surely remember what Shakespeare said about it in The Merchant of Venice. Here it is on the screen. The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest and the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crowns. I thought about those lines after this week, after the slaughter in Las Vegas, and then after seeing the devastation in Puerto Rico. So much loss, so much pain, so much suffering, and so much need for the president to speak to the victims, their families, and to the nation, to buck us up, remind us about what really makes America great, not just our strength, but our compassion, that we are a resilient country where we come to the aid of our countrymen in times of crisis, hold them up, help them, give them food, water, medicine, prayers, and words of comfort. President Trump said some comforting words in Las Vegas and in Puerto Rico, but here's the image that sticks in my head and in my craw. The president tossing rolls of paper towels to Puerto Ricans as if a few paper towels were going to solve their problems. To be sure, they need relief supplies, but what was Mr. Trump thinking when he so casually started tossing out rolls of paper towels like he was shooting one of those office basketballs into a hoop? He was making a game out of it. It looked to me like he was enjoying himself too much for that time and place. We all remember presidents reaching out, helping us through national tragedies. I certainly remember vividly the strong, eloquent speech that President Reagan gave right after the Challenger disaster. And who can forget George W. Bush, strong and defiant at the World Trade Center after the 9/11 attacks. President Obama at Newtown after 20 kids were murdered, then again at that church in Charleston where he sang Amazing Grace. All those presidents helped us through a national trauma. President Trump tried this week, but empathy is not his forte. Everything has to be about him. This week had to be about us, victims and survivors, all of us. Mr. President, we need you to help us through these trying, tough times. Stay strong. Be our commander-in-chief, but also be our consoler-in-chief. You can do it, and we need you to do it. That's my perspective for this week. Hope you have a wonderful Sunday. Remember, as always, stay informed, get involved.
And remember, as always, we love to hear what you think about any topic in the news, and we invite you to weigh in any way you like. Email, Facebook, here are some addresses. Facebook Live has been with us today. We love that, and we thank you for joining us.